And hello everyone, welcome back to another nim tutorial. In this tutorial we'll be taking a look at the OS module in nim. Now the OS module stands for the operating system module. It gives you some operating system features, so like working with files, a better way of working with files, and a bunch of things such as that. Now the OS module is one of the base modules in nim, so let's jump right in. Import std os. The first thing I find is really cool is to get command line arguments that has been passed into the program, such as, let's echo out command line params. Now let's compile this. So I'm just gonna C here and not R. So I'm gonna compile main. And then I'm going to run that main file that was compiled. And I'm going to pass in a couple of things. Let's say I am cool22. You run that, you'll notice we get this, I am cool22. So everything except for main was printed out for us in a sequence. You can also loop through the parameters by using a for loop. So for param. And here you can of course use command line params or one dot dot param count. So this will give you the amount of parameters that has been passed in. And then we can just echo param string. And in here we pass in param, and this will get the parameter from here. So as you can see, this is an integer. So we pass in an integer into param string and it will get the parameter at that index. Now, of course, if we run this, compile and run it, then here we get I am cool. If we were to make this from 0, then we'll also get main, as you can see here. So that's why we made this 1. Now let's take a look at some of the constants in nim that is provided to us by the OS module, such as echo cur dir. So this here gives us the current directory symbol, so the symbol used for the current directory. If we were to run this, we'd get a dot because that is the symbol for our current directory. If we were to go ls-l or ls-a, you'll notice here we have dot, 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 and then here we have the rest of the files. This dot here is for the current directory and this dot, dot is for the previous directory. We also have alt set, which uses the alternative path separator. So let's actually just add a couple of these here so we don't have to spend too much time on this because there's a lot. There are also dir separator, directory separator, dos like file system, and I'll explain a lot of these later. Alright, so here we go. Now, if we go here, then let's explain this. So the alt separator gives us the alternative path separator, which is a /. In Windows, you might get multiple or a different one, but in our case, we just have a / because I am in Linux. We also have the directory separator, which is the same as the alternative path separator. So on Windows, this would be a \. And on Macs and Linux, this would be a /. Then here it returns true if this is a DOS-like file system, which was like really old Windows. In our case, no, it's not. And in exe_ext, this returns the extension of an executable on the system. On Linux, anything that doesn't have an extension could be considered an executable if it is executable. On Windows, it would be .exe and whatnot. And in exe_exts, this returns nothing on Linux. So there is not a specific valid executable file extension. However, it will return exe on Windows and cmd and bat and whatnot. But on Linux, it is nothing. On Mac, it might return something like dmg or I don't really know. Then file system case sensitive returns true if your file system is case sensitive. I think on Windows this would be false, but take that with a grain of salt. In our case, what that means is if I were to go ... Now here I was in my nim tutorial. If I were to say cd nim, which means change directory or go into the folder, and I do this, it says there is no such file or directory. But if I do the same but just without the capital case, then it works perfectly fine. That is because our file system is case sensitive. Then we have invalid file name characters. So these are characters that are invalid to be kept inside of a file name. In Linux, it is all of these. This here isn't a backslash quote, this is just a double quote. So I cannot have a file name that starts with a double quote. That isn't allowed. And then you have invalid file names. So basically you'll see a bunch of these on Windows as well, that you're not allowed to call your files. On Linux, I think it's a bit more flexible. You can call your files some of these. Then you have your parent directory. So this is the same as the previous one we had where it was current directory. So it is the same as curdir. Just this is for the parent. So if we go ls-a again. So this is the current directory. This is the parent directory. That's why we got 2 dots here. And then path separator. This is the character that's used to separate the components in your path variable. So $path. Here we go. So you'll notice each one of these are separated by this colon, and then it goes on to the next path variable, and so on and so on. That is how it works. Then we also have this cool new feature where we can append strings together using a slash. So path to file. Now if we were to run this, well, we get path /to/file. I believe this / will change depending on your operating system. So if you're on Windows, you might get a backslash when you print this out instead of a /. That is because OS, this specific function, basically builds this for you. However, if you don't like this specific method, then you could also use join path, and then you just remove these and add a comma. There we go. It will give you the same output as you can see there. Cool. Now if you want to check if a specific path is absolute, you can go is absolute and let's go /home/netsu, which is absolute. An absolute path is a path that is usually inside of or usually from root. So that's an absolute path. If it starts from your root directory, that means if it starts from here, that's /. In this case, this is absolute, whilst something such as like this /documents, this wouldn't be absolute. So you can see this one is true and this one is false. Basically, if it starts with a /, it is absolute. There's also a couple of ways you can get specific directories. So let me just echo them out. So this gets the home directory. So in my case, it's home netsu. If I were to go $home, we'll also get home netsu. And this is just where you can find like all my documents and whatnot. Then you get the configuration directory. This is where all your config files go. So if I ls.config, here's all of my configuration files, as you can see. On Windows and Mac, these directories might be different. Here's the temporary directory. So basically anything in this directory, once you reboot, everything gets deleted. So everything in here gets deleted on reboot. Here's the current directory. So this is where we're currently at. It's the same as saying PWD, which means present working directory. This is where we currently are. Then you have get appdir. This is the location or the folder of the application executable. So to give you an idea, if we were to go ... and then go /nim main, then you'll notice this one here is home netsu document tuts. So that's the current directory. Then the app directory is /nim. That is because the executable is in this folder, whilst we ran the executable from this folder. And then get app file name returns the name and the path to the executable. So this part here is the name of the executable. If I were to go there, here's the main file, that's the executable. All right. Now you can of course change the directory you're currently in. So let's create another directory here. Let's delete all of these, we don't need them. Let's create a folder, test. Now to change the directory, you can just say set current dir test. In this case, we will go to this test folder in our current folder. Now if we were to run this, and let's just go back into nim so I can execute this. Then we did go into this directory. So if we were to then say, just to test it out, if we were to echo get current directory, then you'll notice we get this. So we are currently in the nim/test. But once the executable stopped executing, we went from the test directory back to our original directory. And that is normal. So if you notice that happening, it's normal. Absolute path, and here you can like pass in a path such as I am cool, and it will return the absolute version of this path. In this case, /home netsu documents toots nim I am cool. So the absolute, as I said, starts from root. When using this, it figures out where root is for you and works its way up to the current folder it is in, and it appends this. Then here we can also have expand file name, and let's say lols.txt. Now if we were to run this, you'll notice we get an error. The reason is because this file doesn't exist. So if you're just going to run that, it won't work, but you need to go lols.txt, and now when we run this, we'll get the absolute path towards this file. Now you can also extract the file name. So in this case, let's assume this is by default what you get. So let file path is equal to boom. So now we have the file path, but now we want to get the file name only, which is this part here. So just imagine we didn't have this part. Then we can say extract file name and then file path. And this will extract the file name from the path. And here we go, lols.txt. Now let's say you have a very weird path, such as let path is equal to /home /netsu /docs /test. Let's say you have this. Now, usually this isn't really considered a valid path. The reason is there should only be one slash. When you put two slashes here, you might get unexpected results. So 2 or more is basically bad. But if we were to go normalize path, then this will fix that for us. And let's just say path. And this needs to be var. Let's just go like that. So we don't have to worry about this. And then we just echo path here. Now if we were to run this, you'll notice all of those extra forward slashes, they're gone. Now we only have these, which makes it look like a much more normal path. Nice. Now we can also check if a file exists by going file exists. Let's go lols.txt. And then if we were to run this, it will tell us if the file exists by giving us true or false. If I were to say lols2, it will tell us, nope, this file does not exist. So we'll get false. Then you can also check which file is newer by saying file newer. And this just means which file was created last. And here we can say main.nim. We run this. And we get false because main.nim was updated last. So if I were to then go like this, save it, since this was now updated, it will say true. So it checks, is this one newer than this one? So every time we update main.nim, so not just create, but when we update main.nim, it changes which of these files were newer. So each time we update either one of them. You can also get the creation time. So let's say we want to get whenever this file was created. So get creation time. And I believe this also means modify. So let's actually check here. Note under process that returns may actually be the time at which a file attributes were last modified. Yeah, so you might get the modified date, the last time this file was updated, instead of the last time it was created, or when it was created. And then it gives you the seconds and then the nanoseconds. And in here we can also do split file. Now when we say split file, we can go here and say get current directory. And let's also add to this current directory lols.txt. And this will split it up for us. So we get this, the directory, so the folder where this file can be found in. Then you get the name and then you get the extension. That's going to be very useful when you need to debug maybe a directory and file and see what is going on there. To check if two files are the same, so if they're duplicates of each other, we can say same file. And we check against lols.txt as well as main.nim. It will return true if these two files are the same, but they are not, so we will get false. If you want to check if two files have the same content and not just the same titles and whatnot, you can say same file content. That means even though these two might have different names, if I do this, it will return true, as you can see. Okay, and there's still a lot more we have to cover, so I'm going to split this tutorial into a couple of tutorials. And thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all again in the next nim tutorial.